Hello everybody and welcome to the Real Housewives Edit. My name is Elle and I am here to talk about the two loves of my life, editing and housewives. Today I want to talk about a concept in our Real Housewives franchises, the housewives making a new best friend. I know this is a channel on editing, but editing is so intertwined with story and writing. Now I know it's reality TV, so it's not necessarily being written down in script form, but the editors really have to work with what they have, like the footage that they have, to help build the storylines that everyone is expecting from the very start. Probably at the beginning of reality TV, they just kind of let the cameras run, but nowadays they definitely have a little bit more of a structure. I don't know how much more of a structure, but I do know that they have sort of like an idea of what the season's gonna look like, what the storylines are going to generally be for all of the ladies, and then all of the scenes that they do kind of feed one or two of the storylines or some character development or whatever it is. So the editors really have to put together each scene to kind of go with what the storyline is going to be for that particular character for the season. When we see housewives create a new best friend alliance on the show, it usually starts with one scene where two of the ladies who previously maybe didn't get along or weren't friends at all, they get together in sort of like an innocent setting and they start talking and they form a bond. I want to break down this concept and this construct for you using a scene in the most recent episode of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City between Lisa Barlow and Whitney Wild Rose. Whitney has said it herself, she would have never pictured herself, getting along with Lisa, but here they are sitting in a park watching their kids ride around on scooters and getting to know each other better. I just know that if one of these scenes is the way a friendship starts, that friendship is on very shaky ground and is doomed in the future. Let's just jump right into it.
So how's everything going?
I think it's been nonstop craziness, but good. Like overall good, but definitely in the...
Okay, so what I will say with these scenes is they always start with one character asking the other,
So how's everything going?
It opens up the door for Whitney to start speaking about literally whatever she wants to talk about.
Overall good, but definitely in the thick of transition and change.
Is Justin is it sitting in with him right now?
Yeah, he's like doing things that normally he wouldn't have time to do.
Oh, that's amazing.
And the first response that's usually given to that first original question of how is everything going is the response that kind of hits the most recent storyline plot points. In this case, Whitney's most recent storyline plot point is that her husband got fired because of that scene. And it sort of like sets the stage of like, I'm continuing what's been going on with my most recent storyline point. If you're a savvy housewife, you do this so that they will actually use the scene in the final episode. If you aren't talking about kind of like a hot storyline point, there's very little chance that the editors will find this interesting or relevant enough to put into the episode. But the fact that she's talking about, him being sort of Mr. Mom right now and all of that, it really lends itself to the most recent storyline point.
Time to do.
Oh, that's amazing.
Mr. Mom, do color cold setting. Daddy daycare.
No, that's... Whoa.
Daddy carpool.
Bobby, you got...
Okay, so this is really interesting. I just think these are really funny flashbacks that the editors decided to use. And I don't want to say that they're reaching, but there is a bit of a reach going on because just him being taught how to use the washing machine. Like, I just feel like that's something that every man in their household should know how to do, but I don't know. Who am I? One time when I was having one of my other children, my husband did call me and ask me what button to press for the dishwasher. And I remember that very clearly and thinking in my head like, oh, okay. So they're doing these flashbacks of him just to kind of like bolster her point and kind of be funny in the moment as well. Kind of seeing Justin as this sort of stay-at-home dad, if you will.
You gotta go.
Bye. Bye. Sometimes it doesn't always get done how I want it to, but it's getting done. And he's just being super supportive of me going and hustling and working even harder with Wildrose Beauty.
Yeah.
But I feel a lot of pressure because now I'm the sole provider of the family.
Yeah, you're gonna.
Okay, so basically now what has happened, right? Lisa asked her how everything's going. She brings up a most recent plot point. It's kind of like two gal pals, like, you know, commiserating over, you know, men stuff and just being moms and kind of mom issues. And then what Whitney does is she effortlessly transitions into something else that this storyline has sort of created for her, which is like, now I am the sole provider for the family.
Now I'm the sole provider of the family.
Yeah, you're gonna do great though. It's hard, like, you know, with the family stuff, like I'm feeling it too. Like my sister's in the middle of a divorce and like.
Okay, so this is where it really begins. So what Lisa really did was she took one word from what Whitney was talking about.
Yeah, you're gonna do great though. It's hard, like, you know, with the family stuff.
And she turned it completely to her storyline.
Like I'm feeling it too. Like my sister's in the middle of a divorce.
Lisa is not really responding to Whitney. She's not asking any follow-up questions like you would if you were in a normal kind of friendship relationship where you cared about the other person and what they were saying. She literally just takes the word family and inserts it into her own narrative, which is, I get it with the family stuff, my sister's going through a divorce. What does that have to do with Whitney being the sole provider for her family? Nothing at all, but this is exactly how the conversations with a Real Housewives' new best friend go.
And like, I'm just trying to figure out ways to like have empathy, but not carry the weight of it.
Yeah, because if you carry around that emotion, that's what turns into disease, and that's where we have
Yeah.
health problems. And I really learned that over the last couple months that
There it is. So now Whitney does the exact same thing back to her new best friend. So Lisa says,
I'm just trying to figure out ways to like have empathy, but not carry the weight of it.
Whitney says,
I really learned that over the last couple months that I was carrying a lot.
she immediately transitions it to her own situation. Are you guys seeing the pattern? When Real Housewives come up with new best friends, they're not really new best friends, but much more that they're finding a new sounding board to get out words of their own storyline so that they can stay relevant on the show. So let's see how they continue to transition.
That I was carrying a lot from my childhood.
How are you letting go of all of it? Like, what are you doing?
Okay, so here's another thing. So when these relationship conversations are happening, there's always going to be maybe one or two questions peppered in there. So Lisa here, she kind of peppers in a question like, how are you dealing with it? Like, cool, there's a follow-up question. You would expect maybe more of those if she was really, really trying to figure out what's going on with Whitney and making sure she's okay, but let's see where it goes.
Especially when I'm feeling like I need encouragement or I'm feeling like weak, I reach out to Curtis and he helps keep my mindset strong.
You know, it's funny that you brought that up because I went to dinner with John this week and I wasn't like feeling good. And then I was like, what am
There it is. She took it right back. No one is landing anything here. No one is really connecting on anything. They are literally just using each other to pass the ball back and forth, trying their best to get their words in. It reminds me of the scene in Bridesmaids. I don't know if you guys have seen that lately, but it's one of my favorite movies.
Doug and Lillian. Woo! You know what? Have a great night. Dessert wine is out. Dessert wine, yummy.
So Whitney's talking about, you know, she talks to her cousins all the time to get emotional support. And Lisa's like, isn't that so funny that you mentioned that? Because I went to dinner with John last night. That has literally nothing to do with anything Whitney was saying. But you know what? It's totally fine in the context of this type of conversation. You can see Whitney kind of looks away, looks at her kids, but it's not like, oh my gosh, this friend is being so selfish, because they're both being so selfish to each other in this conversation, and I love it.
what am I missing? And like, it just keeps coming back to me. It's like, I want a different relationship with God than I have. Like, is that weird?
No.
Okay, so she takes Whitney's trauma and her emotional, you know, connection with her cousins, and then talks about her having dinner with John and that she realized that she needs a better relationship with God. Just to recap, we've gone from how are things going which is always the opener, where Whitney says, you know, dealing with Justin losing his job, but it's cool because he's being Mr. Mom, but now I'm, you know, the breadwinner for the family. Lisa grabs the word family and she says, I totally get it, like my sister's having a divorce. Whitney says, oh my gosh, speaking of emotionally, if you take it on emotionally, you can go through a lot more inside, which is what happened with me and my trauma. And I'm still getting emotional support from my cousins. And Lisa says, oh my gosh, it's so funny that you said the word cousins, because I was just having dinner with John the other day and I realized that I need a better relationship with God. So we can see that this friendship is on a very shaky foundation. You will see these types of scenes in so many seasons to come in every single franchise. And if you ever rewatch franchises and see new friendships pop up, this is the type of scene that always kicks it off.
No.
Even though it's not for me, I have zero hatred in my heart towards the church. I think Lisa is Mormon because she loves God and she loves the community. Like, good for her.
Henry, be careful, Kay.
I know.
Because I love you.
So now it's such a random thing, but they kind of have to cut back to the kids because us as an audience, we might be watching and thinking like, wow, these two are really in a deep conversation and like, what happened to their two young kids? So we have to kind of check in. The editors just do it very briefly, like, oh, the women are like, oh, where are the kids? And then you cut to the kids. I know it seems sort of random and maybe a waste of time, but it is really important for the audience to feel like that loop is constantly being closed, because we don't want to just have the ladies just speaking and we just know there were two young kids there and now they're totally off of our radar and they're not even looking for them. They also have to kind of show like they're, you know, great responsible moms, and it's just another way for us to kind of connect with them.
You weren't grounded, you weren't connected.
I think the thing for me is, you probably can understand this too, is like I was feeling.
Okay, so there it is. Whitney did a follow-up question.
I feel like you weren't grounded, you weren't connected.
There's always going to be one or two follow-up questions to kind of, you know, make it seem like it's a real conversation, even though it isn't. And then as she's explaining, you know, as Lisa's explaining this thing that she obviously wants to be kind of like a plot point for her, she says the classic line,
You probably can understand this too.
this is another way that these best friendships are created, is that they kind of bring each other into it, even though they're not really connected in any way whatsoever, and there's no commonalities in the moment, but they do say that phrase a lot.
I was feeling like I'm not me.
Yeah.
I would normally never put up with certain things. I'm absorbing too much, and I just feel like I need a shift. Like, for example, with Heather, like, I still choose to be there for Heather. Like,
All right, and here it is. The reason these two characters in any of the franchises or in anywhere get together in the first place is because they have a common enemy. There's really no other part of their foundation. They have to build on their foundation, which you can see in this scene, they're trying to do it, trying to show that they're having a conversation, even though it's just literally two monologues of people not listening to each other at all. But they always have a common ground that's creating the foundation, which is the common enemy. They never start by talking about the common enemy, because these two types of housewives, not just, you know, Whitney and Lisa, but anyone who has been part of this type of conversation before, they always want to kind of paint themselves as the victim or the one who's trying to make the situation better with the common enemy. So they don't start off like talking garbage about the common enemy. They always start with like the lighter topics, the lighter plot points, the lighter storyline. Then the conversation ultimately has to turn to the common enemy, which Lisa and Whitney both have this common enemy in Heather. No matter what you feel about Heather and what you feel about the situations, having two people who want to turn themselves into the victim always is going to be better for those two people than a one against one situation, a one against one. It's basically two housewives that have a common enemy that are creating alliance against that enemy, but saying, no, it's not that we have an alliance against this enemy or against this other person. We have an alliance because we share so much in common. We both have families.
for those auditions, it should have been me.
Yeah, that
Like,
was a bold move.
And Heather used something so sensitive to disparage my name and character, and that bothers me. Like, if you didn't use your dad to lie about me, I would not have ever used.
Okay, and so here is where they get to kind of air their grievances. So instead of just doing it in confessionals, they can try to use their husbands, they can try to use their friends, but the best way for them to air a grievance about one of their common enemies is to talk to someone else who has a problem with that person as well. And you can see it right here. Lisa's really trying to tell us, through telling Whitney, that the dad stuff should have been off limits, but she had to do it. See, there's that victim stuff. She just, oh my gosh, I just had to do it because she disparaged my name with something that should have been off limits. So now she's really using Whitney for what she really, really wants, which is to gain our sympathy and get more votes from the audience.
But I have done nothing to not merit being friends with. I have done nothing for anyone to say in the most ridiculous, childish way, who doesn't want to be friends with Lisa? Who's not my friend here? Raise your hand. I'm embarrassed for the people.
Okay, hilarious that she basically quoted herself.
For anyone to say in the most ridiculous, childish way, who doesn't want to be friends with Lisa? Who's not my friend here? Raise your hand.
She was the one who actually was the childish one saying it in that scene. They do the flashback, but before they do the flashback, they cut to Whitney's face, and Whitney's face is kind of like all of us. Wait, didn't you say that? Why are you saying someone else said it? And then you also get that little music, like almost like a curious music, like, that's the vibe the music is giving me. I don't know about you guys, but it's kind of comical. And you also get the reaction from Whitney being like, that's weird.
Go well. Like, Heather has zero accountability and she creates a narrative, and if you disagree with it, she cuts you off.
I feel like you and I have a lot more in common than we realize, because in different ways we do take on things that we shouldn't, because...
Okay, so here it is. So of course on camera they can never say, I feel like you and I have a lot in common, and that is hating this other cast member. They of course can't say that, so they say,
I feel like you and I have a lot more in common than we realize.
and she starts rattling off things that they just said in this conversation, even though if we were to play it back, we realize there was actually nothing being said, nothing was being connected on, no dots were being connected, none of it was actually happening, but they have to put this line, and if you guys ever hear this line, just know that it is absolutely a scene that is setting up two housewives to be new best friends with zero foundation except the foundation of hating someone else. So you guys, that's really it today. I want to cover more Salt Lake City. Honestly, this season of Salt Lake City hasn't been my favorite or the most exciting, but I have seen some stuff in here that I really want to cover kind of more like this. I'm going to be doing some throwback scenes for you guys, covering Potomac, even though when I put up a Potomac video, like no one watches it. I don't know what's going on with that. Do you guys like Potomac? It's not going to stop me from making videos about it because it's absolutely my favorite franchise. Just because I've gotten to know some of you on here, I would love to hear your feedback on Potomac. Is it just a newer franchise so you just don't watch it? I know Beverly Hills is a huge draw, but to me Potomac is like so much more exciting than Beverly Hills and has really, really great characters that dive deep. Write it in the comments below. Thank you for subscribing, for liking the videos, all that stuff. I really, really appreciate you guys. I'm having so much fun doing this. So until next time.
Now I'm the sole provider of the family.
I'm feeling it too, like my sister's in the middle of a divorce.
I was carrying a lot from my childhood.
You know, it's funny that you brought that up because I went to dinner with John this week. Keeps coming back to me. It's like, I want a different relationship with God than I have.
I feel like you and I have a lot more in common than we realize, because in different